Standing up in McKinney. This is According to Callus, coming to you on June the 18th, the year of our Lord 2024, episode 657. It is Tuesday. That means we're doing a Texas Tuesday. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I'm going to have a couple announcements at the end. But before we get into the subject du jour of our Texas Tuesday, let me remind you what I need from you. The only thing I'm asking for is for you to like, share, and subscribe to this here podcast. You can join me on your social media of choice. I have a page and a group over at Facebook. I am a pro at Gab. I drop in at MeWe. And quite frankly, going forward, we're going to have to make some changes up on this, I think, because, the algorithms are not working in our favor. And if you want to make an impact, if you want to bring about the change you seek, you have to keep working. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep doing what you're doing. And I commit to doing that. And here we are. And like I say, if you're feeling particularly froggy, you can go rate and review this here program. I am here as a labor of love. I'm looking to build liberty, expand liberty, protect liberty everywhere that I can. And today is the day I normally talk about Texas, the state stuff, right? So here we go on with the program. All right, first things first. The November election is less than 5 months out. The last thing we need is to get cocky or sit back on our haunches. Ted Cruz has to win, and it has to be a solid win. Now, Texas is nominally 55, 58% Republican, depending on whose numbers you want to count. And that's just based upon the eligible, or perhaps I should say legally eligible voters. But under the current invasion, the current assault from our government schools, it is only a matter of time before they whittle that down to precious little room to give. Now, unlike when Beto ran and Ted didn't do much of anything, which was not a good idea, by the way, and Beto had seemingly unlimited funds, he was not a good candidate. And quite frankly, I think that was part of Senator Cruz's problem. He didn't take him seriously. This story, however, is, say what you want, but Colin Allred is a much better candidate than Beto. I don't know if I'd say he's more qualified or what. Well, actually, I think pretty much anybody's more qualified than Beto. But be that as it may, he is definitely a bigger threat. Definitely going to have the seemingly unlimited money. And fortunately, Senator Cruz has not taken this laying down. He has not blown this off as a unlikely risk. And it is my sincere hope that we can all come together and understand that the top of our ticket is El Jefe, the president, right? The Donald. We're going to get him reelected. I don't see how he loses Texas or that he gets less than 54% of the vote. But my real concern is, can we get better than 54% for Ted Cruz? I don't know, but we need to. We need to have at least an 8-point spread. We have to make this convincing. We have to get the job done. And I'm afraid that with all the bickering that we have going on, with all the infighting that we've got going on, people will forget that. They will focus on things that really aren't relevant in a November election. So we need Cruz to win. We need to cruise to a win, and we need to get it in overdrive, and we need to make sure that that's what our focus is. I think if we show up and do everything we can to get Ted Cruz across the finish line, the Donald will win as well. I'm not dismissing Donald Trump. I'm not saying that he isn't a valuable asset, but I think it's quite frankly evident to me that Ted Cruz is the bigger prize. Ted Cruz, as a senator, once again, is more important to Texas. That being said, I think if we get Ted Cruz across and we give him the 8-point cushion that he deserves, Donald Trump will at least have that. And I think that's the goal. That's the minimum. That's what we need to deliver. The question is, how do we do that? Well, so let me refresh your memories, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump's the only option we have. I know there's a whole lot of never Trumpers out there. There's a whole lot of sour grapes, middle of the road folks. I get it. I get it. Those mean tweets, those, sassy comebacks. Oh, it's just too much for you. I get it. And I'm trying not to mock you guys. I really am. But our other option is Sleepy Creepy Joe. Do you really want to trust the resident for another 4 years? And worse yet, maybe you get Gavin Newsom. Or maybe they'll dust off Hillary or Michelle to run. Do you think that's going to be better? Do you think that's going to be better for your liberty? That's going to be better for Texas? Now, the reality is there's probably some Texiteers out there. They're like, well, if we get a crazy leftist in charge, that increases our odds of getting Texas. Yeah, okay. I will grant you that, but it also increases the odds that it won't be peaceful. I mean, consider your options here, folks. Whatever happens in the future, we would like it to be peaceable. We would like it to be a mutually agreed upon dissolution. And those of you that disagree with that, respectfully, I get it. I understand. But we're looking at multiple ticking time bombs, including World War III. So somebody has got to do something. And what I find interesting is all the stuff that's aimed at Donald, everything negative that's said about the Donald is about what he says or what he tweets. It's not about the actual actions that he took in the White House that has people panicking, or, well, actually, maybe it is, but that's not the thing they complain about or focus on. And I'm not enamored with the imperial presidency that we have right now. And I sincerely hope that when Donald D. Trump, or wow, it's been a day, huh? When Donald J. Trump is reelected, I sincerely hope that somebody will find a way in their heart to reel in the power and authority of these executive orders. And I say that because I think one of the first things that's going to happen is he's going to undo all the stuff that Biden did to undo what he had previously done. And I myself see that as a huge problem. We should not have one person that can go in and just change these things. That is a recipe for tyranny. Even if it's somebody that we know and we trust and we like, we don't want them to be able to go in and rewrite how the government works, how the country functions. That should not be to one person. We did away with kings for a reason. Right? Now, I guess I should temporarily pause here and say, I find it ironic that there are folks that I know that somehow think that I would be okay with a tyrant or a tyrannical behavior from anybody at any level. Since my bread and butter is liberty, and my bread and butter is to push back on abuse and excessive power, but here we are in the modern age, and it boils down to projection, I believe, right? Everybody wants to be in charge, and when they're not in charge, they rail against those that are in charge and accuse them of everything under the sun, of the very things that they would do if they were in charge. Well, let me just tell you, for me personally, Donald J. Trump wins re-election. I look forward to his first day in office and undoing all the things that undid what he had previously done. But at that point, I would humbly ask Congress to get off their collective hind ends and step in and reassert the authority that the Congress has. The only problem is our Congress is a shining example of waste. I mean, we've got a half a dozen members in Congress. Well, maybe let's say there's 20. Well, we're going to be gracious. There's the 20. We have 20 members in Congress that are really good. Chief among them in the House of Representatives would be Thomas Massey. And my response would be is if Massey's supporting it and you're a Texas House rep and you've got an R after your name, you probably ought to be looking at what Massey's doing. Just saying. Now in the Senate, my opinion here, I mean, We'll catch that in just a second here. In my opinion, we've got really 3 senators that are solid and lead the way. Among them, the aforementioned Ted Cruz. I would go with Mike Lee. And probably the leader of the pack in many regards is Rand Paul. Now, what do you see in common between Rand Paul and Thomas Massie? Oh, that's right. They're both basically direct descendants, philosophically, politically, of Ron Paul, the number one advocate for liberty that we ever had in Congress in my lifetime. The guy that I would love to model myself after, but I'm not nearly as smart as he is. If we can't accept that, if we can't work with that, if we can't build on that, we're in trouble, folks. You shouldn't fear people that are on your team. You should be willing to work with the people on your team and set aside petty differences and agree that the bigger problem's over there. We need to focus on defeating that problem over there. And rather than stabbing each other in the back, rather than fighting with each other, focus on the bigger win. We don't want leftist progressive socialists running this country, and we need to basically do anything we can to prevent that from happening. And I don't care if that's in the city level, the county level, the state level, or the federal level, but for the purposes of the discussion, we're talking about the state of Texas, right? The state of Texas, we have issues. Our House is just as bad in many ways as the U.S. House. Unfortunately, we came up a little shy due to some, we'll call them voting crossovers, in replacing Dade Phelan. So Dade Phelan got across the finish line, and wouldn't you know it, there's at least 20 House reps that are willing to push and hope and help him get to be the Speaker of the House again. Now, the best argument I got was, well, you know, we were able to outlaw abortion with him. Okay. Is that all you got? Is there anything else? So he served his purpose. So all the other things that got killed in calendars, all the other things that got killed in, whatever other committees, especially the Democrat chairs of said committees, we're just going to look past that, pretend that never happened because, well, you know, he gets credit, or his part of the credit, for ending abortion in Texas, which, by the way, is not technically ended, no matter what you've been told, and no matter what you feel about that, the truth matters, right? We want the truth. You know, they're still touting that they got his constitutional carry, and in fact, we don't have constitutional carry. Although, I'm the first to say, hey, I'll take it. It's so much better than what it was. But don't make stuff up. Come on. We're on the same team, guys. My entire delegation is trying to sell me on a false bill of goods. And it's shameful. But at the end of the day, come November, I'm going to encourage you all, put aside those minor differences, because my least favorite rep is still going to be in line with me on probably 70% of the stuff. He's highly effective, sometimes detrimentally to what we would want, but we need him on the team in order to win. Now, I would propose or prefer that our delegation would see the light, that the entirety of our county has zero interest in seeing Dade Phelan as the Speaker again. And on top of that, we would like to revise the rules that give so much power and authority to the Speaker in the first place. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. But it'll be a good fight. It'll be interesting. And if nothing else, the House will be more conservative from the Republican side. And perhaps we'll get just a few things out of the House that we didn't get last time. It would be better if we could structurally make over what the House is set up like. I mean, I would think that that's in order. But if we get the same Speaker, don't count on it. Now, what's interesting here is Lieutenant Dan, that's the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, he has his vision of what he wants to get done. And he has his own priorities, which is fine as a statewide elected official and arguably the most powerful person in Austin. It's good to know that he's aligned with us on 90+% of the things that we would like to see done as well. And it's good that he leads by example and fights the good fight. But I will point out, he didn't really get a whole lot done on the border either. I mean, this is an important thing. If you can't secure the border, there's no Texas. And if you can't secure Texas, there's no, quote unquote, these United States. If you're going to turn a blind eye or pretend that somehow the feds get to overrule everything we do at the state level, well, you might as well just hang it all up. Nothing else matters. The guys in D.C. are running the show. I didn't sign up for that. That's certainly not the oath that I took supporting, because that's not in the Constitution, yet that's the way they act and that's the way they behave. So again, we've got to work together. We've got to push the agenda. We've got to push that Overton window that I've mentioned more than once. Because I really think that we need to remember who we're fighting or what we're fighting. Now, there's definitely, and excuse me here, there's definitely a spiritual element in here, right? And for those of you that have the same faith that I do, you know exactly where I'm going with that. So we're just going to agree that that's the case and set that aside, because there's some people that get upset about that. But we know what we're talking about. For those of you that don't care or don't want to hear it, that's fine, right? The leftist progressive socialists don't really have any unique or new ideas. Everything they have espoused has been tried. Everything that they have done has turned out in a colossal failure, yet they keep saying, well, it wasn't the real thing, or it wasn't tried hard enough, or we didn't spend enough money, or we didn't have the right people in power, or we didn't do this. And there's plenty of examples where it doesn't work, and it's detrimental, and it has a negative effect. The thing is, they're not learning from their own mistakes. And I think it's on purpose, because they don't care. They actually like that outcome. They imagine themselves as the ruling class, that they'll be above this and separate from it. But that's never how it works. Just look at the French Revolution. I mean, early on, there were a lot of people here in the United States, the colonies, if you will, the former colonies. They were initially on board. Hey, that's a great idea. They're getting rid of a king. They're going to go into a republic. They're going to do their own thing. And then things went desperately off the rails. One group of radicals brought in another group of radicals, and then the radicals took over that. And the whole thing spiraled wildly out of control until you got the tyrant of Napoleon shows up and fixes everything. But he didn't really fix it. He just clamped down so hard that there was nothing you could do about it. Right? That whiff of grape shot. I don't want that. I have zero desire to see that play out in these United States, let alone Texas. Texas has got to lead the way. The way we do that is being unified. We focus on what the legitimate enemy is. And at this point, the leftist progressive socialists control D.C. Anything and everything that happens in D.C. is detrimental to Texas. And the sooner we understand that, the sooner we wrap our heads around that, and the sooner we start behaving like that is the case, the better off we're going to be. Now, what does that mean? Well, why does it matter about Ted? Because Ted Cruz is our senator, can go there and can push back and can warn them to their face, basically an ambassador-style role. I'm the U.S. Senator for the state of Texas, and I'm going to tell you, the people in my state, we're not going to go along with this. As a matter of fact, if you keep doing this, we might just have to remind you that we're not going to play that game any further. I mean, now, I'm not saying that Ted Cruz necessarily agrees with that, but that's the kind of power and position that he could have if he chose to exercise it. And I would love to see something like that happen. Just remind them that they work for us, not the other way around. Much like those folks that are down in Austin, they work for us as well. And, things being the way they are, we have our own factions with our own party that are jockeying for position and control, and they want to, fight to get the edge over the other. Okay, I get it. But we're supposed to agree that the leftist progressive socialists that essentially are running the city of Austin, the city of Dallas, the city of Houston, the city of San Antonio, they're bad people. They do bad things. They do things under the guise of helping, quote, protecting other people, but it only has negative effects, and nothing works out positive long-term with these folks. I mean, if you doubt me, just look at how bad things are in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. And those same folks are metastasizing to the other smaller towns or cities across Texas. And because our very same dichotomy of the split between, let's call them the more moderate faction and maybe the hard right faction in the Republican Party, and the hard right spends all their time beating up on the moderates, And the moderates do what moderates do. Well, if you don't like us or you don't want to deal with us, we're just going to join with these guys. And at a certain point, it would do really a lot of good if the hard right folks, right, if they go look in a mirror and say, what is it that I really want? What is the desired outcome? And how do we get it? And then come to the conclusion, maybe if I quit beating up on those people that aren't quite as right as me, maybe if I just gave a little grace to the people that are mostly with me and keep them on the same team and, I don't know, choose to work with them, choose to partner with them to get stuff done, we can beat back the leftist progressive socialists that are infecting and damaging every city across the state of Texas. And if you think it's just at the city level, no, I mean, the same thing goes on in the school districts. Hey, I know you only have to win with a plurality, so let's run 2 or 3 different flavors of Republicans against the entrenched, quote unquote, Republican that's there. Well, that'll work really well for us. But we do it all the time. We go after the establishment elected, we'll call them weak Republicans. Republicans in name only might be appropriate in many of these cases, right? They're not conservative, but if we spend all of our time attacking them, if we spend all of our time beating up on them, and to be fair, some of them do deserve the critique that they get. Some of them do deserve to be put to pasture. But if you only run a negative campaign, if you only describe all the shortcomings and the failures and it's negative, 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 well, all the normal people that are going to vote for the school board look at that and they say, well, the schools are pretty nice the way they are. I don't know all the stuff that goes on, but it seems okay. Little Johnny or little Mary's, they're getting the basic education. I'm okay with that. You know, and the taxes are high, but they're not ridiculous. Yeah, we're just going to go with the status quo because that person over there, they're angry. And even if I don't necessarily think that they look angry, I've been told by my 3 or 4 friends, including a couple teachers that I know, that they're angry and they hate teachers, they hate the school district, and they want to abolish it all. I mean, which do you think is going to sell better? I mean, I've always been open and upfront. I think government schools are dilatory, detrimental to freedom and liberty because they're government schools. But that being said, they were established to give a basic education so people could function as adults. So there is a definitive purpose for them. There is something that is supposed to be gained out of it. But the school districts do their own thing within reason. The school districts don't really care about anything other than their metrics and how big can they grow, like any bureaucracy. So if you want to go after a bureaucracy that people are generally happy with, mostly because they don't understand the danger involved with it, but they're generally happy with, they've been sold a false bill of goods, they're in la la land, their heads in the sand, whatever you want to clarify it. If you spend all your time attacking and beating them up and shaming them, do you think they're going to want to listen to what you have to say? Do you think they want to work with you? Do you think they want to hear what you have to say? Are they going to hear it? They're certainly not going to listen, but even if they're not listening, might they hear it? Well, no, not if all they ever get out of you is negative attacks. I don't know what the proper solution is. Well, I've said publicly, in my perfect world, there'd be no government schools. But we don't live in a perfect world, and that's not an outcome that's likely to ever occur. So how do we fix it? Well, I might suggest that we get good, positive people that have some background in educational world, right? And I'm not saying they had to be teachers. I'm not saying they had to, go through the bureaucracy. Just something. And have them take time and learn about the district that they're in and get to meet the people. Maybe they're involved in the PTA or whatever they call it now. It doesn't matter. Just be involved. Get to know people. People want to support people that they know and they like. But again, our own team can't stay on the same team. How are we going to sell ourselves? How are we going to approach the people that are actually largely disaffected by politics and don't want to pay attention to any of it? They're checked out. They go and they do what they think is best. They want to keep the peace. They want a positive outcome. They want things to continue going on. Sadly, by the time things get bad enough that people actually wake up and think about it, they're so far gone that it might not be fixable. Again, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. Now, fortunately, to my knowledge, there's not any one city in Collin County that's anywhere near there. But we could be. We could be going down that path if we don't figure out what we're going to do. If we don't figure out a good, positive way to approach our local elections. Because local elections matter at the state level. And if you can't win a local election, you certainly aren't going to do anything at the state level. So when you're thinking about Texas, and when you're thinking about how do we fix, protect, and defend liberty in Texas, you have to start with the lowest level and work your way up. Now, I'm a precinct chair. I've been a long-term precinct chair. I've made it evident to a lot of new precinct chairs that I'm happy to assist them. I'm happy to educate them. I'm happy to show them the ropes. I'm happy to bring them up to speed. They don't have to agree with me, and I will still give them the input and the help so that they can be more effective in doing things that a precinct chair ought to do. I will point them out to people that may be better suited to do certain things that I don't do as well. If we're not willing to do that, if we're not willing to engage with people that don't necessarily completely line up with us, that are on our team but maybe aren't our flavor or brand of Republican, that's a problem. You can't win. You can't get things done if you don't work together. We need to remember who we're fighting. Again, you religious folks out there, you Christians out there, you know what I'm referring to. Those of you that are not, or those of you that reject it, just know that the person in front of you isn't your only enemy. Or the party in front of you isn't your only enemy. Yes, they're leftist, progressive socialists. That's fine. But they don't do things on their own. I'm going to cut it off right there. This has been Texas Tuesday. This has been episode 657. And as I say, with that, wait, I'm sorry. I do have a minor announcement. Probably starting next week, for the foreseeable future, we're going to drop down to 3 episodes per week. I've taken on a new role, and I need to adapt and figure out how I'm going to do it and do it well. And be a net positive to those that I serve. And that's going to require some more time that I don't necessarily have unless I take it from something else. So starting next week, it'll probably be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday show. I know some of you are weeping and gnashing of your teeth right now. I'm sorry. And we're going to do that until I figure out how to make it work. Now, it is my sincere hope that I can get it back up to 4 probably within a few weeks. I don't know that 5 shows a week is going to be feasible anytime in the foreseeable future. But I want to be upfront about it. I want to say that's good. I think this other role I took on is going to be ultimately very beneficial to my long-term goals, which is to protect, defend the Constitution, and expand liberty everywhere I go. And with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the other side.